Hey there folks, the number one Chubby Checker fan from the Infinite Jukebox here with another entry of my Rock Hall Review series for 2025. What is the Rock Hall Review series, you may be asking? It's a yearly series that I do where I talk about each of the current year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees, review one album by them, and then talk about whether I think they deserve to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and if they will get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Two questions that, more frequently than I would like, have completely different answers. And today, I'm talking about Chubby Checker, and his record, Twist with Chubby Checker. Really drawing in that 18 to 24-year-old crowd with this one, huh? Listen, you probably know Chubby Checker for the twist. Hell, I would be shocked if you didn't at least know the song. And if you know your dance crazes, know a little bit of the history of mid-20th century popular music, you probably also know him for Pony Time or Limbo Rock, both of which were popular at the time of their release, but failed to maintain the same cultural impression that the twist had, and its follow-up song, Let's Twist Again, which is, I mean, that's just the twist, but again. And, other than that, I mean, you probably don't know much else about the guy, and I can't blame you, because God knows I didn't before I had to do this video. And now that I've actually spent time reading about Chubby Checker and his career, I can confidently say I am probably the only teenager that knows anything about this man's discography, and I don't know what that says about me or the amount of free time that I have, but whatever it is, I do not like it. Look, I'm just gonna get it out of the way and say this is a bad album. I mean, by that, I mean, it's just a compilation of stabs that Checker and his label Parkway took at creating dance crazes at the time. A lot of artists did it. Chubby Checker's just one of the few that actually managed to pull it off for more than a song or two, even if really only one song managed to stand the test of time. And now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, it's the early 60s, so, albums weren't really a thing like that then. They were mostly just singles compilations, which is, like, half true. It's like half true, but let me say this. By this point in the history of popular mainstream music, specifically pop music, like mindless music made to just attract people who wanted a fun time, energetic music, like this, everyone from Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry to Jackie Wilson and Little Richard had already put out full-length LPs that were varying degrees of good to great, and felt like complete albums that were actually meant to be listened to from front to back. Like an album should feel. And I don't know, I don't know. This is just not that at all. And I expect so much more, considering you can only go so far with doing a song about a dance craze and then doing that like a dozen more times. Hell, even Fats Domino, the man whose name is being parodied in the name Chubby Checker, Fats Domino, Chubby Checker, had put out several solid full-length LPs by this point that were consistent in their track list. All I'm saying is, when I listen to an album from 1960, I don't have, like, crazy high expectations. I'm not expecting some massive aqualung levels of concept work or some insane, like, double album kind of stuff. That would be foolish and ignorant of me, with different expectations of what popular music really was at the time and how it was reflected in physical form at the time. That being said, I do think there was enough of a standard of quality at the time for an entire full-length album that was set by 1960, that this is just way below that bar to a nearly baffling extent if it weren't for the fact that I was also aware there were, like, plenty of albums exactly like this at the time. And honestly, man, a lot of these songs just, like, aren't good. I mean, sure, the twist is cool. Obviously, you're going to enjoy it more when you're at, like, like a family gathering or a bar mitzvah or wherever the fuck they play the twist. But were, like, every single one of the songs here meant to, like, catch on? I seriously question the time and effort put into some of the songs here. The chicken sounds on the chicken, or the very title of the Oop-Poo-Padoo Shimmy. Was anyone doing that in 1960? Like, I don't expect an answer, since this series, despite tending to have a higher age range than my regular videos in terms of viewership, I seriously doubt any rowdy youths circa 1960, 1959 are now watching this in their late 70s to mid-80s. But my point still stands. All of this has aged as well as any other dance craze see poorly. And, I mean, when you combine that with the fact that Chubby Checker doesn't have a particularly strong or even really soulful voice to sell these songs to you as the listener, then, I don't see there being that much to enjoy here. It's just a record that feels like nothing more than being tossed at by a guy who's just just chucking dance crazes at you, and all of them miss except for like one that you kind of like, that being the twist, obviously. Just getting tossed at, these dance crazes getting tossed at you. And it just ends up being a pretty grating and completely pointless record with nothing to really get out of it. You hear the twist and you've heard every song on this album except, slightly better than all the other songs on this album. I'm going to give this record 2 stars out of 5. Now, does Chubby Checker deserve to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? No. It's just no. I don't see why. I've heard so many people this year argue about how it's a big shock that it's taken this long to get in Chubby Checker even into a nomination, if he even gets inducted. And I'm like, really? Is it a big shock? Like, I don't know, man. I understand the importance of him in terms of pop culture and popular music. The Twist is arguably one of, if not the most influential one-hit wonder kind of single of all time. Obviously, he wasn't a one-hit wonder in the literal sense, but if we're just talking about songs that are remembered, one-hit wonder. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like when they tried to do the singles category that is now forgotten by pretty much everyone except people who are dorks about this kind of thing like me, and they inducted the Twist in, I believe, the first year that they did that, which was like early 2020s, I think that was substantial. Now, I understand why they're nominating him, because that category fell apart like 2 years in, and they, never really recognized that they even did it at all in the first place ever again, so that was kind of void. But I don't know, I feel like had they kept up that singles category, that would have been the right way to honor Chubby Checker, in the same way that it feels kind of like the right way to honor so many other one-hit wonders. Influential songs that kind of would just have artists taking up slightly undeserving spaces on the ballot when there's so many other artists out there that are waiting for a nomination. So in that sense, I think that should have been the way that he was honored. Or if they wanted to get him in as an actual performer and have his name like listed on the website as like Chubby Checker's inducted, then instate a veterans committee of some kind and induct artists that have been eligible for 25 years, and then bam, the first recording 50 years or older, and you could induct him that way. I feel like that would also make more sense, and honestly clear up a lot of space on the ballot for certain other nominees that have kind of gotten nominated in recent years too, but that's neither here nor there and is completely unrelated. My point is, I don't think he deserves it as a performer inductee like this, and he's honestly one of the weakest artists on the ballot, and while I think it's a toss-up for me between a couple of who I think the worst nominee this year is in terms of just like, do they deserve it, I could definitely see an argument being made for Checker fitting that box pretty well. Now, do I think that he's going to get in? I mean, I think that he has a worse chance than a lot of his fans think he has, but he has a better chance than what a lot of people like me would like to think he has. Because on one hand, he's kind of a nothing compared to a lot of the other artists on here, and I don't mean to make art some sort of, competition or anything like that, but when you look at the likes of Mariah Carey, Outkast, Cyndi Lauper, Oasis, I mean, hell, even Fish, who I can't stand, cultural icons, some of the most influential artists of their eras, and Chubby Checker's just kind of Chubby Checker. He's not necessarily the most essential in telling the story of the history of music, even if The Twist is probably an important song to mention, and as a whole, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, despite having some awful nominees now and again, and some even worse inductees on occasion, tends to not really go for these types that much. I mean, there have been the likes of, sort of semi-forgotten names attached to big songs that have been nominated but haven't gotten in. Types of artists like Joe Tex, or hell, even the late great Graham Parsons. Artists that were seen as overdue, or, solo artists with name recognition to some degree that are now somewhat forgotten or only really remembered for a certain record or a certain song. And they tend to not be inducted, generally speaking. But then again, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame also loves inducting artists that have been eligible for years but took forever to get in. I mean, just in recent years, the likes of the Spinners and the MC5 got in, and those are coming from pretty much the same decade Chubby Checker is, just the later half of that decade. So who knows? I could be completely wrong. Chubby Checker could be seeing induction this year, and I mean, at least it would get him out of the way, Chubby Checker can't be nominated the following year if he's nominated this year and gets inducted, so whatever, man, but I don't think I really see it happening. I think the votes are going to kind of stray more towards some of the other artists here, because some of the more traditionally, classic kind of artists that are nominated here, like Joe Cocker and Bad Company, I think are going to pop up on ballots a lot more than Chubby Checker is. But then again, a lot of people may kind of go the route of saying, oh my god, they're not in yet, and vote for him anyway. So, who's to say, really? I'm not sure. And with that being said, that is the end of this entry in the Rock Hall Review series. Thanks for watching the Infinite Jukebox, and I'll see you in the next one.